Redevelopment Authority Citizens Committee on January 5th at 5:31 at the Community Center. Roll call, please.
Chairperson Bagwell.
Present.
Vice Chairperson Hanneman.
Here.
Member Scheck.
Here.
Member Perpich.
Present.
Member Wickstead. A quorum's present. Oh, Member Lapierre. Sorry.
Here.
Thank you. We're on agenda item number 3, which is public comment. The public is invited at this time to comment on and discuss any topic that is relevant to or within the authority of the Carson City Redevelopment Authority Citizens Committee, including any matter that is not specifically included on the agenda as an action item. Do I have anyone that would like to give public comment at this time?
So anything, Lori, that has to do with the downtown redevelopment?
You can speak on anything that's in the topic of Redevelopment Citizens Committee, so yes.
Okay. Well, some of the things that I've thought about...
Give your name for the record.
I'm sorry. Barbara Patterson, to be real formal. And so driving down Carson Street many different times of the day, I mean, the traffic's always quite heavy. I've been concerned about the fact that they took down the fences because I think it's not as safe as people are walking. If you're trying to step out of the way because a group of people are coming, you could easily step out into the street. So I don't think that was good. But I'm not sure that, I mean, there's a lot of traffic on Carson Street. I worry about making it too late. I mean, I think it would be beautiful and great big sidewalks and you could do gardens and that's great, but maybe we should be doing those on some of the side streets. But if we're going to make 2-lane street on Carson Street, then where's that traffic going to go? And one of the things that I keep thinking about is just because you have a parking place in front of your store, if you have a shop downtown, does that mean it's going to be open and vacant when you want to park there? Not necessarily. So it doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to go downtown and go more to your store. I think we need to think of Carson City, it's a downtown destination. Why do people want to go downtown Carson City? What is it about it? And people that would be coming into town that would be visitors or people just on the freeway, why would they decide, okay, let's drive through town as opposed to stay on the freeway? We do a lot of car trips around the country, usually halfway across the country, Texas and Oklahoma and between here and there, or to Colorado. But lots and lots of cities that you go into, just as you're entering the city, it tells about some famous person that lived there or something. We don't have anything like that that would tell you. I mean, Mark Twain lived here, you know, but we have people too, like Matt Williams, you know. I mean, people that are more recent that we could have some signage about something like that. But what's the reason to go downtown Carson City? Several years ago when we were in Vancouver, they had the most wonderful reason to go not only downtown, but to walk all around the town and look for, they had, what?
Dolphins.
Oh,
What are you talking about?
yeah, dolphins, and they had someone manufacture them so that they were all identical, and then they had local artists paint them, and they were all around town, and you could get a little brochure. Well, why don't we have some Mustangs around town? I mean, we have some beautiful, the deer and the eagle that they've done and things like that. I mean, they're wonderful. But what's going to bring people downtown? That's what I keep worrying about. I love to go downtown and walk around. I love it when we do the advocates do the Taste of Downtown. It's so much fun. People walking around the town and just enjoying it and going in and out of the restaurants and the stores. You know, maybe once a month on a Friday night, all the downtown stores should stay open till 8 o'clock or something, and have some festivities that go along with that, or some snacks or something, I don't know, but some reason we have to have, Carson City has to be a destination. You know, I mean, we have the Capitol building, and that's wonderful, and the grounds are all beautiful, but that's one thing. So, anyway, I think that's all I have to talk about.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions of Barbara? Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that, first of all, it's
Do you
not,
have a mic on? There it is, there it is. It's not 2 lanes down to Carson, it's 3 lanes. So you got,
Right, because a turn lane.
right,
Sorry.
going down to, but we have the ice skating rink, and that's open till late. And if you haven't been ice skating lately, it's a lot of fun down there. And there's a lot of businesses open to accommodate the ice skaters.
Okay, that's a good thing. But is it advertised somewhere? Do you know that
Well,
you can
again-
go downtown? I mean, if you read the paper, yes, maybe, but,
Yeah, the town sometimes is a little short on advertising. Yeah.
okay. All right.
Okay, thank you so much. I
Okay.
really appreciate your
Okay.
time and comments. Do we have anyone else at this time that would like to make public comment? 2 Barbaras in a row. We're doing really,
You're right.
this is
I am
unique.
Barbara Van Heis, and I too am concerned about the downtown project because I'm afraid that people are going to miss a lot of what's downtown because they're going to avoid going down the main street and because there's a lot of traffic that goes down Main Street, and so people are going to go find other routes. It's going to put a lot of traffic on the back roads and on people who live on those back roads, on Curry Street or Division Street, and it's going to have an impact on them. And it's going to diminish, I feel, people visiting downtown because they're just going to go around. So instead of going through town and seeing something that's going on or seeing something that's new, they're just going to avoid the traffic by taking a different route. I really don't think it's going to be a real benefit. I think things like closing 3rd Street is a wonderful thing that's going to bring more people downtown. And just having more events, and something like having the Mustangs, it would be a wonderful draw for people to come to the downtown too. I've seen those in different cities, and they have a great impact. So I do not feel that, changing it to 3 lanes is going to have a positive impact upon this community. I really think it's going to detract from the downtown.
Does anyone have any questions of this, Barbara? Oh, Garrett?
The comment that I'll make is going back to the Dolphins and Mustang kind of idea, and the fences being brought down there as well. You have to make downtown more walkable, and in order to do that, you widen the sidewalks, and part of widening the sidewalks is losing some of that street space. There's been a ton of traffic studies that have been done that support the numbers that say that the traffic and the roads are going to be able to come together and not have any issues with overloading.
The traffic and the what?
The road's going to be able to take the traffic once the freeway is completed, and we got to keep that in the last end. The last end is going to connect to Highway 50. And the thing to remember is that this project's not going to be done until that freeway is done, or right about the same time. So, I'm not a traffic engineer and I'm not going to pretend to be, but that's been one of the main things is that the traffic study has been done by Patrick Pintinger and his staff, showing that the traffic levels will be able to flow through there at a good rate. And you have to make downtown more walkable. And really the only way to do that is to get the sidewalks. I mean, especially if you're going to put Mustangs out there, which I think art is going to be a big part of this downtown thing. You can't have a Mustang that's on the sidewalk that's only 8 feet wide.
Well, no, they would have to be on some of the side streets, but they could be visible from the sidewalk, from the main street.
Right. Thank you for the feedback. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your comments. Is there any further public comment?
This is not the place to continue discussing this, but just in case somebody leaves, I am going to give an update on item 5.3 on the status of the downtown Carson Street project. But in case somebody leaves, I'm going to please contact the planning division talking about the traffic studies and things, and we can provide more information. Obviously, there's been a lot of discussion about that in the past, so I just wanted to say that now, and I'll give an update later.
Thanks, Lee. Okay, then I'll close the public hearing, and we'll go to agenda item number 4. Has everybody looked at their minutes from October 6th? Are there any changes or corrections?
No, I make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
I second.
We have a motion with a first and a second to approve the minutes of October 6th, 2014. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item 5.1. This is where we're going to elect the new RAC chair and vice chair for 2015. Do I have any nominations for the chair position? I'm leaving that position.
Please note
not
for
me.
the record that, Commissioner Bagwell is now Supervisor Bagwell and is now sitting on RAC as the appointee from the Board of Supervisors. Per board and RAC bylaws and policies, she now cannot serve as the chairperson on RAC. So you're going to need to appoint a new chair and vice chair this evening.
Sorry.
Ronnie, what are you doing these days?
Garrett, do you want to make a motion?
I do. I make a motion to appoint Ronnie Hanneman as the chairwoman for RAC, Redevelopment Authority, Citizens Committee.
I second.
I have a motion and a second to appoint Ronnie Hanneman as the chair. Is there any further discussions? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, then I'll complete this agenda item and turn it over to her after that. Let's elect the vice chair. Do a nomination for a vice chair?
Okay, I'll nominate Garrett as Lapierre as vice chair. How about that?
I need a second to that.
I second.
A second by Jean. Is there any further discussion on that? All those in favor of appointing Garrett Lapierre as the vice chair of the RAC, say aye. Or aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you very much. This is so much fun. Here comes the gavel. Our new chair.
I don't have to take this with. Okay, we're on agenda number 5.2, and this is for possible action to make recommendations to the Redevelopment Authority regarding the expenditure of $271,000. A lot of money here, sorry. $271,942 for the fiscal year 2014-15, which is now redevelopment revolving fund, and $218,058 from the fiscal year 2015-16, which starts July 1, redevelopment revolving fund, for a total of $490,000 to design and construct a pedestrian and events plaza on 3rd Street between Carson Street and Curry Street, including recommendations regarding conceptual design. Lee Plemmel?
Yes, thank you. And for the record, Lee Plemmel, Community Development Director. I'm going to give a brief overview of kind of how we got to this point in the project, a little bit of history and background. Vern Cron is here from the Parks and Rec Department, and he's going to go over some of the design concepts and what is being considered at this point. So we'll tag team this with me starting. So just as a reminder of a little bit of history on the project, it was back in earlier, a few months ago, when the RAC reviewed projects, and the list of the projects are up there. Over a couple meetings, you identified what priorities might be, some projects, and ranked those projects, and these are up there now in the ranking as recommended by RAC, with the 3rd Street Plaza construction being the #1 priority. In terms of time, and then since then what has happened is we went to the Board of Supervisors on November 20th and got an affirmative, redevelopment. Yeah, on November 20th, that's the right date there, and they approved the funding from redevelopment for the 3rd Street Plaza construction, as Ronnie read into the record, contingent upon and subject to bringing it back to RAC for recommendations on the funding as well as design input. So I will start by saying that is not typically how I want to do this process-wise, and I've heard that loud and clear. There was a timing issue. I've explained it in here. We are actually trying to get to the Board of Supervisors on February 5th with a contract for design of the downtown. It makes of the Carson Street project. It makes every bit of sense to include this as part of this and not separate. So there was timing issue and working with Parks and Rec and getting some concepts before. So again, this is not how we want to do it, but we are here now. We want to get feedback. We want your recommendation. We will bring that recommendation back to the Board of Supervisors Redevelopment Authority on February 5th, which would be before they take any further action. They could still modify the design, the contract, or whatever, pull it, modify it, however. So there's definitely still the opportunity to make the recommendations. I would also note that when we took this to the Board of Supervisors, I also took the RAC priorities, and this is kind of a separate issue, but in their ranking, so we took a separate item for them to accept the RAC's recommendation on the priorities. And I think primarily because they wanted to have a bigger discussion on those priorities, they only accepted the 3rd Street Plaza as the top priority for RAC and deferred kind of the rest of it for a discussion, which I plan on taking back to them on January 15th. So that's just kind of an aside on this. But again, still there was unanimity among them that the 3rd Street Plaza is a top priority for events and to support redevelopment and have a project, as you've said, that's visible and can provide a real benefit to the downtown and the community. So the action again is to recommend a total over 2 years. So it would be, we're talking about funding from this fiscal year that we're in that ends at the end of June in the amount of about $272,000. That's kind of what's available and unaccounted for in this current year's budget. And then that would leave an additional $218,000 from the prior fiscal year would be the commitment to be able to start construction. That gets you to the $490,000 from redevelopment. That's necessary to move forward with the project, and construction would start after July 1st anyway, so that's not an issue. As noted in here, there's been some changes. Part of what's in your packet is the budget projections from finance that show how much might be available in next year's. More recent events of transferring some people around, that report for later, but I think it's pertinent to this. Michael Saloga is being removed from redevelopment and put to use in the city manager's office for economic development purposes. So that's something that's going to free up some capacity in the redevelopment budget. Probably some other things going to happen there. So it's anticipated that there's going to be even more available than what's noted here. So in addition, you're not committing and not going to be able to do anything for a couple years if they move forward and recommend it this way. It looks like there's going to be funds to implement some of the other priorities and that are on the list to continue to do some of those other things. So as noted up there, the La Piccolos are currently the adjacent property owners, and as a result of the RAC rankings, the city manager really took it and ran with it and worked with the Parks and Rec Department to put together some conceptual designs that will show you that, just to give us a ballpark idea of how much a plaza this size would cost to surface down. And the La Piccolos are not able to be here tonight, so there's late material that includes their testimony from the meeting. But I would note that they've talked to the McFadens, or the prior owners of those same properties, and some of the McFadden family is here tonight and may want to speak to this project. But they have committed $125,000 in private donations, which really, and I think as Vern will go over in terms of the design, really makes it a feasible project that can be a really nice space that's going to have some really real value added to the space with that donation. That's a wonderful donation that's being offered. And just to note also that since again tearing up a street in the downtown where the water and sewer pipes are very old, Public Works would be replacing the water sewer pipes as they do with any other similar street project. So that would be kicking in some of that additional funds that would do the project. So I think at this point, I'll move on to let Vern talk about the project design, and we can come back around to any questions you have regarding the finances or other things, if that's okay.
Thank you, Lee. For the record, Vern Cron, Park Planner. What you'll see up on the screen right now is the 2-block area that surrounds 3rd Street. Just to give everybody a quick orientation for those at home and for those here in the Sierra room. North is to your left, north is to your right, thank you, Lee. And across from 3rd Street, you have the Legislative Mall, the green space in the downtown area, which is really nice. Of course, Carson Street that also connects in with 3rd Street on the east side of it. Moving backwards, moving west, we have the Firkin and Fox on the southwest corner. We have Mom and Pops on the northwest corner, and of course, as you move further to the west, you have a variety of different smaller shops in that area. Of course, Curry Street that borders the project area on the west, and then the large 3rd Street parking lot, which Lee is pointing to now. So just wanted to give everybody an orientation so when I start talking about these different areas, you'll feel comfortable in where I'm headed with that. One of the things that we tried to look at is what I call is kind of the opportunities that this space gives us, as well as the constraints that we have when you talk about design and the design elements. So let's first look at being kind of a glass half full person. Let's look at the opportunities first for this space. One is that it does present an opportunity in the downtown area to close off a street. The parking and traffic flows, and having discussions with Patrick Pittenger, are not a major concern related to the closing of this street, so it really is not going to impact the traffic flows in the area, according to Patrick. We also have a great green space basically across Carson Street with the Legislative Mall. It's a great opportunity when we start talking about design to be able to take that green space across the street and include it in what we're going to be doing with the design. Of course, the removal of traffic on 3rd Street itself presents a great opportunity for the plaza, which this commission is very familiar with. We also have the opportunity, because of even though we may have the loss of parking on 3rd Street, because of the 3rd Street parking lot, that parking can move over there. Even with this photograph, you can see that the 3rd Street parking lot really still has opportunity to move some of that parking from 3rd Street back to the 3rd Street parking lot. Great opportunity for a venue when you have 3rd Street in a mall condition and an event going on there. That parking is really a nice amenity, being that close as it is. One of the things that does happen to be a little bit of a constraint for us, and Lee alluded to this earlier, is the utilities. That entire 3rd Street area has water, sewer, storm drain, and electrical in it. So that's going to be a constraint for us of what we can do, because we just cannot be putting structures or any kind of a large permanent fixture over top of those utilities, because what puts Darren and his crews in a situation is that if something should go wrong, for example, they might be ripping up a stage. So that's one of the things that we really tried to work with in that regard, is to be respectful of those utilities that are underground and doing what we can to minimize anything that goes over top of those. Lee did talk about the aging infrastructure. Those are easily 50 years old, if I recall, 40 to 50 years old, some of that infrastructure in that street. The loss of parking, I think, is a constraint related to the businesses, but the beauty of it, in my mind, is what it gets replaced with, and that's going to be a pedestrian mall. But it can get shifted to the other areas not too far away. It's a small space, and that's both a good thing and a bad thing. But one of the things from a design perspective I think you want to be real careful with is not trying to put, the phrase I use all the time, is 5 pounds of sugar in a 3-pound sack. And there's always that temptation. It's like, well, every wish list and everything that we've dreamed about downtown should go in that plaza. Well, maybe it shouldn't. Maybe it should just be certain things that focus on what we want that plaza to be. And so the beauty of it being a small space is it's a great people space. The scale of the space is wonderful. When you walk through there with the tree canopies and with the overhangs on the buildings and of course the Firkin and Fox, there's a great people space. The scale of the space is really great. So I see that as a great opportunity, but the constraint is not, at least in my mind, not trying to put too much into that space. Of course, not only do we have the aging infrastructure underneath the street, the surface infrastructure is not doing well. If you were to walk down through there, the sidewalks on both sides of the street are deteriorating. A lot of drainage issues, specifically on the north side, become a problem when we get snows and heavy rains. So again, one of the nice things about redoing the structure from an infrastructure standpoint is to deal with some of those surface repairs that are going to be necessary and replacements, as well as working toward the idea of having a better infrastructure underneath to support drainage and those kind of things. So anyway, just to give you a quick feel of what I think the space has for opportunities in this community, but also some of the constraints that will play into the factor into the next portion, which is the design. Oh, thank you. The design that we're looking at is something that we've spent a lot of time working on. We actually started off with initially 3 real preliminary concepts to take a look at this. And some of the things that I want to kind of walk you through right now, okay? And so I'm going to walk you through the plaza. That's my intent. So on the lower part of the screen, if you'll recall when we talked about the last picture, we have the mall, the legislative mall, to the bottom side of the screen. One of the things that we do have that's, I think, a very great opportunity with this design is to reorientate the whole design to what I call an axial design. So if you're in the legislative mall, you can look across the street, and we would relocate the crosswalks, because right now currently the crosswalk takes you right basically to the front door of the Firkin and Fox. And so one of the design ideas was to actually move it, working with the Carson Street design ideas, was to move that more so it's more centered on the plaza. So if you were in the mall, in the legislative mall, the green space, wanting to go across the street, you would go across the street. That lines up very well with the water feature. It also lines up very well with potentially another crossing that we might have on Curry Street into the 3rd Street parking lot. So you get this real linear design that really tends to emphasize that space and the visual openness of it. So that's one of the things we wanted to look at. The street crossings are a large part of that, specifically at Carson. When you start moving further to the west, you, of course, as I indicated, you have the Firkin and Fox on the left-hand side and Mom and Pop's on the right-hand side. The idea would be is that the Firkin and Fox area the existing deck that's there would be removed. You would still have about the same square footage of area that they would have for eating, but it would actually be at grade with the plaza. So instead of being up in the air with the wood deck, it now is down on the surface with the plaza, same level as the plaza. It has potentially some pavers, some concrete associated with it. The area would be enclosed, similar to what's there now with a wrought iron fence, but we would add some small planters in there along with some trees for shade, trying to give that space a little bit of differentiation between the fences and the tree canopy that would be in there. One of the locations for the trees is because of the underground utilities. We don't have a lot of opportunities within that plaza to add trees because of what's underneath. So this is one of those rare locations that we have that it can be 10 feet away from storm drains and it can be 10 feet away from the sewer line. So it would be a small tree, but still yet give the canopy an effect we would need. One of the things that has come up, or the question has come up, is the city going to be buying tables and chairs for the businesses? And the answer is no. That would be something that they would have to do. I'm just showing those on the drawings so that it helps represent the kind of space that we want to have and the excitement that we want to have in that area. This also will provide Mom and Pops in particular with a lot more potential for street chairs and dining room tables. When you take out that parking, Mom and Pops now can have the opportunity to put more chairs and tables out there if they so choose, if they want to. One of the things that we are going to do with the existing structures, the Lopiccolos have been talking about doing some remodeling on the face of their building on the north side of the plaza. But one of the things that we're trying to do is to save all the existing trees down there. They have, they're in a unique combination of masonry, planters, and other things. And so we want to take a look at turning those not only to save the trees, but we want to turn those into areas that we can actually use for sitting. Because right now they're just basically there with blocks around them, masonry blocks around them. So we want to expand that. Also, by expanding those planters, we also have the ability to work a little bit with some of the ADA issues that are in that plaza. There are some real steep slopes that are in there that we want to be able to address. Those planters along the building, saving the trees, gives us the opportunity to help make those grade transitions work a little bit better for the required slopes that we need. So we'd be looking at that as an opportunity. The plaza itself, is intended to be a combination of concrete and pavers. We haven't got into that kind of detail yet, but you can see the striation across on the plan, and that would be to be a better and inviting environment to be in than what currently is there with broken up sidewalks and asphalt. So that's all going to go away is the plan. Anything that you see there currently on the ground plane will disappear. Now let's talk a little bit about I'm going to talk about the stage first, and then we'll get to the water feature. One of the things that we were talking about, the stage itself is approximately the same size as the current city stage, which is about 20 by 24 feet, the portable stage that they bring in and out of there. So we're looking for a permanent home for it. This definitely creates some savings for the City Parks and Recreation Department moving it in and out, but it also creates the opportunity for an area. So if you have an event, the stage would be there. There would be a shade canopy over the top of it so that you can have the bands in there and not have them being cooked during the day. There would be some sort of a trellis structure over the top of it, so if bands wanted to come in and hook up their lights and do some other things, there would be a structure above it that they could do that with. There would be appropriate power there. The stage actually is only about 18 to 24 inches tall. It's set up so that you have a large upper area, which is the 24 by 20 foot area, and then you have stair steps that would actually walk down or be down to the plaza. So it not only acts as a stage, but it also gives you the opportunity or venue for people who want to just sit and watch the water people play in the water feature or do whatever they want. Now, I want to make sure that that's clear. It's a water feature we're talking about. It's an interactive water feature. And I'll explain what that is a little bit more later, but it's not a splash pad. There has been some discussion about, oh, it's a splash pad, and they're really different animals. But the idea is to have this water element in the plaza. It adds cooling effect. It becomes the center point of the plaza. So from a design perspective, when you look at it, not only is it centered off the stage, but it's also centered from one end of the plaza to the other. So if you're actually in the Legislative Mall looking across to what will be New Carson Street, you'll be able to see that water feature. So that's part of it. So the stage relates to that. The stage also has trellis areas to the west and to the east of it for potential either more chairs, benches underneath of it. There's a handicapped access ramp to the back. One of the things, though, with the location of this is that the Firkin and Fox is going to lose all their parking on the north side of their parking lot, and that's okay. You know, we've gone through this discussion with the Little Piccolos, and they're willing to do that. The other advantage that I believe with this orientation is that if you have a larger event, it can also flow out onto Curry Street. So if there is a band playing, for example, and you wanted to close Curry Street, not only could you have the entire 3rd Street Plaza full of people, but also it could flow out onto Curry Street as another way to expand the event. So that's part of the reason, the location for it, as well as the utilities that we talked about. Lastly, just talking about the water feature, the intent is that it would, let me tell you what it's not. Maybe that might even be helpful. It is not a fountain in the sense of a elevated or contained water fountain, or a fountain where you would have, 18 inches or 12 inches of standing water. It's actually, so it's not a fountain per se, and it's not a splash pad. When the Parks and Recreation folk think of splash pad, you think of water cannons and hoops and things you would see at a water park, for example, and it's not that either. What we're envisioning there is what's called an interactive water feature, so that people would be able to come in, press a few buttons, and the jets would start working. So you could do it that way, or you could leave them on all the time and let them run all the time, so people could run through it. Many of you might be familiar with the water feature up in front of the Sparks Theaters in downtown Sparks. That would be something similar that we'd be talking about. Not as big. It's a fairly small water feature with the budget we have. But that would be the intent, for people to be able to have the feature going on a regular basis. People could come down and enjoy just sitting there, the opportunity for children to play in it if they wanted to. It just is a great urban feature when it comes to this kind of a thing. The other beauty of it, by being an at-grade fountain, or if you will, an at-grade water feature, it can be turned off for the events. So if you are having a large event down there, it's really easy to turn off. It's at grade, so people can go out there and still have the nice event without getting wet or without having that as an interference. So it gives it a multi-purpose aspect to the plaza as well. Let's see, I'm just trying to check my notes here to make sure I've covered everything. Also, we've talked about doing some sort of plaza signage that would be related to possibly even directional signage associated with Carson Street, and maybe even some plaza signage itself. If somebody wanted to actually put out, like, there's going to be an event next Tuesday, you could even have those kind of event signs incorporated into some sort of feature that you could hang in the plaza or on some sort of a standard as well. So all this is conceptual, but the reason we had to do this is that we needed to give Public Works the opportunity to start pricing this stuff out, and so we had to come up with a design that would work. And so they needed to be able to come up with square footages. They needed to be able to come up with some lineal foot costs of different things: curb and gutter, storm drainage, how many square feet of concrete we're going to have, how many square foot of pavers are we going to have, how many trees. We needed to come up with a cost for the trees, the planters, how many lineal feet of planter do we have to have. So we needed to go through this design process, this design exercise, so that we had something a little more tangible, so that we could come forward with what we believe are numbers that what we're showing you, we believe we can do. Now, as we went through this design process, the fountain and the stage became more and more of a non-possibility as we started looking at the monies available to us. And so those were actually going to be cut from the project. And if it wasn't for the donation, the $125,000 private donation by the McFadden family, those two features would not be a part of the plaza. So it plays a huge factor in raising the bar, in my mind, for what this plaza can become. So it's certainly appreciated, you know, at city staff level that the McFadden family has come forward and offered this, because I think this really gives us the opportunity to offer something great to the community with their help. Otherwise, you know, if you can just imagine, it would be a nice plaza if you took those two things away. Just, you know, if you can kind of work with me and imagine, if you took those two things away and left that parking lot, in other words, on the south side of the plaza where the stage is, and left that a parking lot, you would be looking at a nice plaza. You would have brand new concrete and pavers, and you'd save the existing trees, so it would be nice. But it just doesn't have, I think, the appeal that both the stage could give it from an architectural perspective, as well as the feature from the water feature. So I've probably wandered off topic. I haven't wandered off topic, but I'm ready to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, I have two comments. Number one, I think, as you know, this has been on our docket, and especially the Chamber's docket, for a while. So we were the ones that originally brought this up, and the concept always was to have some kind of a stage out there. Otherwise, as you said, why do this? The two things that I see is, number one, I think it's great that you're going to be moving the crosswalk. But what I would love to see, because this is going to be what I consider a gathering area as well, is that you take those blinky lights, you know, those sidewalk that they have in front of the Supreme Court on Stewart Street. Pardon me? Yeah, because, I mean, if you're going to be attracting families with your water feature, whatever you call it, okay, and a lot of people, and you want to put the two of them together, I think that somehow or other, and you would have to, you know, determine that, is put in better, you know, signage or something for that. I'd love to see that. The other, I do not see the water feature as being central. I would think that it would be better moved down to the center so that when you are watching whatever is going to be on stage, you can be sitting around that. That would be also a cooling feature in the summer. So it looks like everything's concentrated at the west end, where I think if that was down center, but you probably have a reason for that.
No, those are good questions. Those questions came up at the Board of Supervisors too as well. Part of the reason we put it down at the farther down to the west end was that when you start talking about people yelling and screaming and potentially having a great time there, so you have all this energy and all this activity, now you're moving it closer to the eating areas. And so is that a good thing or a bad thing? I looked at it from the perspective of, is that if you wanted to come to Mom and Pop's and Firkin and Fox, you'd probably want a little better, quieter eating experience. You didn't want to necessarily be in the middle of all this energy. So the idea was to look at it from the standpoint, we take this feature, which is going to have a lot of energy, and move it to the west end. You could still see it. And that's what I'm talking about. When I was talking earlier about the opportunities and constraints, the space is really a small space. It's not like it's 500 feet away. You're only really, probably 75 or 80 feet away from those eating areas. And so I think the spatial relationships are really important. And we can take a look at this when we bring the design team in. But that was at least my reasoning, is that that's going to be very energetic, and moving it down further. Plus the other thing is that then if you're coming from the green space, the Legislative Mall area across the street, you actually get to experience the entire plaza if you go to the water feature. Again, it's a small space, but that was the reasoning why. And it's a valid, what you're saying is certainly a valid comment. That was just the design reasoning behind it, is to take the energy and put it more toward the west end, away from the eating areas. That's all.
Well, I know if I go to that wine bar, I'll have like 4 of those without watching all those kids or whatever, I mean, you've got that wine bar right there too, that if you're going to be sitting out with wine, I'm not sure that, you're going to be really enjoying all that energy either. The whole street basically is an a dining and drinking street. I considered this 3rd Street much more of a adult place. Had never really thought of it as a place for children. So I have to rethink.
Well, I guess I'd like to look at it more maybe in maybe helping you maybe reshape the vision a little bit, is that I don't want to make this sound like it's going to be swarming with children. I think what opportunity presents itself is that it does present the opportunity for a multi-generational experience within that plaza. Grandma can bring the kids down and sit under one of the benches and have a glass of wine if she wants. You can have the family experience the space. It's not like a splash pad where you're paying money and you're going to stay there for 2 hours, like you would at like the aquatic facility, where you pay to get into the aquatic facility and you splash around for 2 hours in the pool. Here it's going to be a situation where if someone could, they could come down there and spend the afternoon if they wanted to, because nobody's checking it. But the idea would be is that you would see people flowing in and out, different ages, different groups, and so I don't want to make this sound like it's going to be a only for kids. I really see this as a multi-generational experience in a small urban space, and I think it'll be a great opportunity for the community to, experience something that we just don't have, as an outdoor water feature like this. It just doesn't exist here in town.
Vern, in front of Shields, they have a low something without any water in it, and then at certain times the water comes up and the kids run through it and their parents put them in the car and they go home. But it's very nice.
Well, thank you. And that's something else you could do too. You could just have the water going during certain times. So again, it just depends on how that all programs out, and we're going to have to work through that a little bit. But I guess at least in my vision of the space, that water would be constantly going unless there is a larger event that's happening there that would mean that it would have to be shut off for the stage or for a larger event.
Who's going to actually control the water? The city or La Piccolo's or the business owners? Or is that going to be done in some type of an agreement that we put together on who controls the use of the stage and the use of the water feature?
We're still working on that, but the basic answer to your question is yes, those are details we need to work out, but it would be something that would be done between the city and probably the property owners, would probably be my suspicion, and hopefully in conjunction with the business owners as well. I don't want to leave them out, but the property owners are the ones that really would be probably helping us put that together.
That's it.
Oh, sorry.
It's a charming space, and I think there's so much potential for use of it in the community. Where are you planning on putting the signage, the directional signage? And are you planning any like park-type benches around this water feature where people could sit with their kids or sit with other family members and kind of just relax and watch that?
No, those are very, very good questions. Let me see if I can answer your first one. With the Carson Street improvements, there is going to be wayfinding signing and directional signage. So I see that being more as a part of the Carson Street concept that we're doing that would be associated with 3rd Street. So it would be maybe on one of the corners of 3rd Street. But that's what I kind of see, that larger wayfinding sign. The smaller event sign, if you will, for the plaza event would be probably in the plaza somewhere, or at least visible from Carson Street and or Curry Street, depending on how that works out. It's one of those things we still have to kind of sort our way through. Is that really something we want to add? Is it really that big of an issue, having signage for event? Like, next Saturday we're having, a bead selling event. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, is that really that important? Maybe not, but that's something we're going to consider, and we look our way through this. To answer your second question about benches, again, being a small space, I didn't want to spend a whole lot of, and again, this can be refined as we move forward in the design, but the idea is that the planters would be your benches to sit on. We would have those, 18 inches high, so you'd sit on the planters, or you could sit on the stage steps. That was part of the reasoning for that as well. There would be probably some benches underneath the trellis, but because it's such a small space and because we are going to have people in it, I didn't want to start cluttering up the space with a whole lot of benches because of the multiple uses of this space. So it doesn't exclude benches, but I was using the planters and I was using the stage as the opportunity for people to sit.
I got a few questions for you. First of all, this is awesome. This is an awesome plan. I think it's what downtown's been lacking is a place where families can come and also where adult entertainment can be had in the evening hours with a stage. To have some music and have something that's permanent there. I think that's big. Is the water feature going to splash the stage?
I don't believe it is. It's not intended to be that. It's a fairly small water feature.
Unless the music's after hours.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Again, we can control the height of that. As everybody knows, we got wind always in the afternoon here. So that's going to be part of just what we're going to be doing with the height of those things. Sometimes, I guess my envision is that they're going to be a couple 2-3 foot tall. The water sprays, we're not going to have them 5 or 6 or 8 feet in the air. Just the wind around here would really make a mess out of things, and I think you got a very good point, is that if we don't control it a little bit, we're going to have a lot of excess splashing. But at least in my vision of it, the fountain would be 2 to 3 foot tall, kind of a rotating fountain, so that we should be able to control somewhat with that, only that height of that water, so kind of somewhat control the splashage or the overspill.
What's the intent of the plaza? What do you see happening here? What kind of events do you see taking place here?
Oh gosh, I would minimally say you would see the same type of events happening that have been happening there, musical events, those kind of things. The other thing that I think this gives you the opportunity to do is to have other types of venues, like for example the farmers market. They're always over on the other side. Again, I have not talked to Linda Maroney, but maybe you change the venue of that to the plaza itself, close 3rd Street between close Curry Street from 4th and 2nd, and your vendors are out there, leaving you more parking for people to park versus up and down the street. So you could shift the farmer's market over to the plaza, for example. The business owners could have their own special events too if they wanted to get together and do something special down there. So I just think the way I'm looking at this space is a multi-use space, with the stage, with the shade, with the fountain. I'm hoping, and at least in my mind anyway, I'm hoping that not only do we see all the events that happen there currently return, but this gives you such a great venue for multiple weekends to have a venue for other things that we may not even think about at this point.
And who owns the stage? Who's going to be responsible for booking, and who's going to pay for the water? Just a few of those things. I know you may not have them all worked out, but if we want to bring a band in, or does the brewery Brewery Arts Center have a say in getting some acts down there? That's kind of what I'm looking for.
We're still trying to work that through. And this may be where I don't want to step on. I don't want to get too far out here. Lee, do you want to weigh in on that?
Well, I was leading up. It's a public plaza, so it's still right of way. It's a public plaza, and we need to work with the property owner to get the appropriate easements for the stage. But I think it's the intent to have the city or at least the request for programming come through the city. So there does need to be one coordinating place for that. I don't think it was stated that it is public. This is not going to be just for events for those property owners. The details would still need to be worked out as to the.
Well, one of the visions also for this would have been for impromptu, but I also know that the city and the state and government in general always requires those $1 million insurance policies, which really is an issue for impromptu and others. And the other comment I have is I really want the umbrella and towel concession for that, so.
Yeah, and we talked about the possibility to that liability thing is maybe doing something for events season long, but that's another part of the discussion that we need to have as part of this, and that's really whether or not this is constructed, but that's another good point that we have had some discussions on that needs to become maybe started resolved with this.
A couple of those other things too, and again, we haven't gotten so far down the road to tie these down completely, but with the landscape maintenance district happening in the downtown area, this would be a natural fit to work with that part of that whole landscape district downtown, as far as, the maintenance costs, the water, the cleanup, those kind of things. So, it's a natural fit. Although we haven't specifically gone there with the business owners per se, I think it's a natural fit. Just like the entire Carson Street, they're talking about the landscape maintenance district, or what do you call it?
It's a business improvement district. It's in NRS, a commercial area vitalization district is the correct term.
So what Lee said, we're thinking about doing the same thing here. So making it a part of it, I would assume that would also apply to Curry Street as well. So at least, again, I'm kind of getting out here a little bit beyond, kind of out on thin ice here. So, but that's at least been some of the general thinking related to that. The other nice thing that I think, and I know that Public Works was pushing really hard, and I appreciate their efforts of getting this incorporated with the design for Carson Street. That means the team that gets selected there's a continuity issue. We'll have the same kind of benches, the same kind of trellises, the same kind of planters that you will see on Carson Street. It's just a nice way to blend this into that whole design as well. So it was one of those things that I know Public Works was pushing hard to do, but I think there's really a strong benefit to doing that, having the same design team. Those kind of aspects, it can be figured into the construction schedules as well. It just works better that way, in my opinion.
Last question. There's a monument right in front of Mom and Pop's. Is that being moved?
At least the thinking is right now is, yes, we would keep it in that general location. We would probably move it more into the Carson Street improvements, but that's still to be determined, but it will stay.
And I have not seen, maybe I was not able to download everything. Did you have the budget breakout down? Because it sounds to me like most of the cost is in the actual physical design of the street. And I have no idea what the cost is for the splash. Oh, you've got it there? Okay.
Designs, yeah.
Design. Okay, well, what I was going at was the cost of the water feature, for lack of a better word, and also the stage.
The budget that we're working with, is the fountain is between $50,000 and around $50,000 for a budget on line item. And then the stage would probably get the rest of that.
Is the stage not already owned? Do we not already own that?
No, this would be a permanent stage.
Gotcha.
Versus, what I may have confused you with is the stage size is basically the same size as our portable stage that we bring in for those events. So it's 20 by 24 approximately. That's the flat surface area of the stage you see up there, and then you have the steps going down, which make it a little bit larger. So between the concrete work and the electrical and the trellises and the shade canopy and the infrastructure for lights and stuff, we figure that will basically eat up the rest of the $65,000, $70,000 that it'll do that. So those are getting real rough budget numbers, but that's kind of generally just to try to answer Ronnie's question as best I can. About $50,000 for the water feature, and the remainder goes toward the stage.
I just want to also echo concern about liabilities when that's not in use, to really look into the insurance aspect of that.
Especially with kids running through the water feature.
Seating, not the seating that's going to be around the planters, but like for instance, Fridays at 3rd Street, the one thing I've always kind of caught my attention was there's no seating. You know, obviously there's a dance area, people are going to get up and dance, but there's no seating besides the Firkin or mom and pops. You know, maybe that's something that's either paid for through the business improvement district or by the businesses coming together and doing something like that. But I think seating, when there's a concert and there's a stage performance going on, has to be a part of this.
Okay, I guess we're done with this portion of it. Are there any public comments?
I'd like to ask a question. Right behind Firkin and Fox on the west side, there's that.
Barbara, would you go ahead and restate your
I'm
name
sorry,
so that
yes,
she
Barbara
has it?
Patterson.
That is a rule.
Sorry, I don't want to break any rules. Barbara Patterson.
You do.
I've already broken one twice tonight. On the west side of Firkin and Fox, there's that empty, just kind of a dirt lot. Is that not something that could be incorporated into this?
To the south of Firkin and Fox? Or
No, on the west side, just behind it, all of that. Look, in that picture there, there's cars parked there, which I notice sometimes when we're down there for events, but that's partially dirt and partially, I think, a little bit paved, but.
I think she's talking about that is what I think.
Can you put the pointer on it?
It's
Right
paved
there.
right now.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes, it's paved currently.
No, right behind the comma coffee outdoor area, there's a fence, and then back behind that, there's a dirt area.
Yeah, that's
Where the trash can is.
That's another property owner.
Yeah. But so who owns the one that you said it's paved where who owns that property?
the La Piccola. That's part of the Firkin and Fox property.
Okay.
La Piccolos.
But that's not available to use as
They
part
are using part of that for the stage area. Yeah,
the event center.
they're going into that property a little bit.
Okay.
For the
And then my
stage.
other question was, and I think you kind of made it clear, but the surface then it won't include curbs and sidewalks. It's all going to be one surface. Yeah, so you're not going up and down curbs and, oh, great. I think that's wonderful. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Mr. McFadden, you had a comment?
Rob McFadden. Just want to thank everybody for putting this together. My family is extremely elated to be able to take part in it. My dad spent a lot of time at that section of town. He thought it was the core of Carson, and he did a lot of renovations, and he brought the farmers market to that street, and it was pretty much his favorite place in town. So I'm just really glad to see this happening. And since Mark and Jenny have purchased it, they've really done an amazing leap forward from where he took it. So I know they wanted to be here. They're somewhere warmer than here, and but I know that they're going to do great things in conjunction with this too. So thank you.
Well, we definitely want to thank you for your generosity and giving back to the community. Thank you.
It's an honor.
Yeah, without you, we wouldn't have had that splash, or the water feature, excuse me, I get this right in my mind, water feature or the stage, so thank you.
Definitely.
Anybody else?
Les Patterson, and in regards to what Mr. LaPour said about the seating, like when there are concerts and stuff going in there, what will they actually do for seating? Is it going to be portable seating? Is it going to be, won't be permanent seating? So,
I guess maybe the best way to answer that would be is that if event promoter wants to have seating out there, they would have to, as a part of the event, bring in portable chairs to bring in.
Because that's what they did with the portable stage. They brought in seating.
Correct, and that would be up to the promoter of the event, who's ever doing the promotion. If they felt that their event wanted to have that additional, for a concert, for example, like a banjo concert, for example, that would be more of a seating venue for the event versus a live band that would be up there dancing and having a large area for open and circulation around, where you maybe wouldn't need quite as much seating. But that would be up to the event promoter who is staging the event.
So they would accomplish that.
They would have to figure that out. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Vern, about how many do you anticipate that, since you're going to reconfigure how the stage now will be done, about how many could we actually have of the public pedestrian or whatever in that area? Could we have a couple hundred people easily?
Oh, I think you could. I think right now, even without the stage, I've been down there on some third nights, and they get some of the nights that I've been down there on in the summer, everybody gets pretty cozy down there, so I easily think you could get a couple hundred people in there. And then with the orientation of the stage being a little differently, now you have the opportunity to flow out on to Curry Street, provided it's closed. We don't want anybody getting hit out there. But if you could close Curry Street, it could really create that venue, because the way the stage is situated, the sound would be able to move down to the Curry Street. You'd be able to hear it out on Curry Street much better than where originally what they would do is bring in the portable stage, face it to the east. I think it just opens up that whole area a lot more, with using Curry Street as an, if you will, kind of an overflow area of the plaza.
Okay, we'll close public comments now, and I need a motion from one of you, please, to recommend to the Redevelopment Authority the authorization of the expenditures as so stated earlier. Who would like to make that motion? Jean?
I make a motion that we accept the expenditures for a total of $490,000 to design and construct a pedestrian and events plaza on 3rd Street.
Second?
Second.
Call for the vote.
So just to clarify on your motion, what you're indicating is that we're going to spend $271,942 from this year's budget, and then allocating $218,058 from next year's fiscal year 15-16.
I needed to break.
That's okay. It's just so that the money can get spent in the right years. Okay. So with that, I'm okay.
Okay, let's take a vote on this. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? The motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Lee, we're now on 5.3, discussion only regarding an update on the downtown Carson Street project schedule.
Yeah, just really quickly, because this is tied into going to be tied into the design of the 3rd Street Plaza. You have in your memo the history, so I won't go every detail of it. But upcoming things is in January. We're shortly going to be interviewing firms, as you read in the paper, design firms, design teams to do the Carson Street project, along with along with Curry Street, although that will be constructed later, and now incorporating the 3rd Street Plaza into that. Our goal is to bring the contract to the Board of Supervisors on February 5th. In the meantime, I've also been working with the downtown property owners on talking about the commercial area vitalization district, and actually with a lot of help from John Rutledge. He's kind of the center point that's getting the information out from them and coming through them. We still need to get into some details now and start looking at the true cost and true allocation of those funds. So we'll be getting into that in the next couple of weeks. So if any of you have any particular interest and want to talk to me in the next couple of weeks on that, I could probably give you an update. But our goal with that also is to work towards bringing an ordinance to the Board of Supervisors on February 5th to get that implemented. That's pretty aggressive. I'm not sure we can get that fully done by then, but I think John Rutledge has the group pretty well organized together with help from others, so I think it's possible. Any questions on the Carson Street design project?
Yeah, of course I got a couple. So no further discussion about using redevelopment funds to pay for a bid district?
Well, the direction we went away with from the board was that we're not, so just taking a step back, from the board, the supervisors basically told us we're not going to go forward with this project unless the downtown property owners, businesses put some skin in the game, and this is the method to do it. So we've proceeded through that. We still need to get to the point where we go to the board and actually adopt it and implement it. I think at this point we have the support from the property owners that are going to be actually submitting a petition. This isn't going to be us telling them, and hey, do you like this or not? They're organizing up front, getting the necessary majority together to come to the city saying, we want to participate, here's how much it'll be, here's how we'll divvy it up again. So I think with that, I'm not sure where the point of, since they're coming to offer to pay for it, I'm not sure at what point, but I think there's still a decision point for the board and redevelopment to go, and redevelopment authority to go a different direction with it, but nothing on the agenda right now.
Perfectly, thank you, and I get that. I mean, if the appetite is those guys want to pay for it, well, then let them pay for it. I totally understand that. If that's the case, are we going to get back, I believe the number that's been thrown around is about $50,000 a year that redevelopment spending to maintain this area now? Are we going to get that back into our fund to be able to use for different things?
I think that still needs to be worked out, and I want to work on some numbers with them and see what they think, how the property owners are, what their proposal for the distribution is going to be. There may be something, I think there's something in NRS about that this district cannot substitute for funds already allocated by the city. Now, I'm not the attorney, and I won't get into it now, but we may not be able to take away, and I think the intent has always been that they will pay for the increased cost in the maintenance, not necessarily take over completely. So I think that's the intent. I'm not sure about that, the legal thing. I want to say there might be something in there about that, but I think the intent is that the property owner is just going to pay for the increase.
Thank you. That makes sense. That makes sense to me. On January 5th, can you just, can you state again what the Board of Supervisors is going to be, or January 15th, excuse me, or what they're going to be covering?
January 15th is the, so there's two meetings. Actually, February 5th is the one is what I said. But January 15th is actually going to be the prioritization, redevelopment priorities and ranking the redevelopment priorities. So they are going to have discussion at that meeting to talk about your recommendations and make their own recommendations on the priorities. February 5th is bringing these recommendations regarding 3rd Street Plaza to the Redevelopment Authority. It is also tentatively bringing the commercial area vitalization, well, I have to bring something at that time. Hopefully bringing the ordinance, but tentatively bringing the commercial area vitalization district ordinance to the Board of Supervisors. That's the ordinance that lays out the shared maintenance cost in creating a district, and also taking a contract for the Carson Street, the downtown project design team. Those items are coming up.
So what I'm interested in looking at with the CAV, we have a similar project, if you will, that Parks is doing on a landscape district for the new Schultz Ranch. So I'm wondering, am I going to be able to see that type of complexity addressed in what you're looking to do in the CAV? Because a lot of work was done on the landscape maintenance district that laid out what the city's responsibility for maintenance was. And I just want to make sure when we get the CAV information that it's clear what's being paid for within the CAV. And so my concern is the CAV district going to actually put on the special events and then the city just has to give it 30% based on what they vote? So I'm interested in the dynamics that you see occurring in that district.
Wait, say that again about the 30%? What was that?
Well, from the preliminary that was done, is there a 30% it said that the city would cover, or the governmental buildings occupy 30%? So therefore, our cost center would be 30% of whatever is voted on in this district. Am I understanding that correctly? And so if the group gets together and says, we want to host a Bikerama, or a Splasherama, we want to do a Splasherama, does that then mean that the city automatically, whatever that group votes on, we have to participate on? So I'd like to see those issues discussed when you're forming your information for the CAV.
Yeah, the
Area
CAV
vitalization.
Commercial area vitalization, right?
CAV
yeah.
for short, sorry.
So I don't have to say commercial area vitalization district every time. It's so your first question was, those details have to be worked out. There was the first part of your question.
Well, the real issue for me is I think that we need specific detail. It cannot be just a loosely.
Or will it be like the landscape maintenance
yes,
district?
Because that is very detailed, that says who has the right to do what and how, because it's kind of like that who pays for what, how does the vote actually occur, which property owners have how much right, is it by assessed valuation, and if that's so, then one person can control the district. And so I'd like to see those. Yep. I'd like more detail than less detail.
I think that's an issue. Yes. No, I think, and it does need to work those things out, and especially who has the portion and is expected to pay a portion, and those are all good thoughts. And I'm meeting with them tomorrow to talk about those very things and how it. Yeah, and it's really interesting that the state and the city is part. So those are very good questions that I have, and how they intend to bring that forward and do it. So. Yeah, those are some details.
It seems to me there's still a lot of loose ends here, a lot of loose ends. So just like, right now, Redevelopment is paying for the $100,000 for the streetscape or the medians. Where does that money go? I mean, if there's not any medians, where does that money go?
Right. I don't think it's the 100,000. I think the 100 is for the downtown. It's not just to do the medians. It's the whole downtown area. But yeah, we need to break out. Parks and Rec, actually, for the guys that he's worked with, have done an estimate based on, there's going to be an estimate, the square footage of new sidewalk, and they kind of know how much it takes per square foot to maintain sidewalk for the whole year, and how much landscaping and trees. So they've put that together, and that'll be part of it, to come up with the basis for the cost and justify to the businesses how much they're paying and everybody. Yeah. So there's quite a bit to be worked out.
One last thing on the plaza. Yeah, I would love to see the Brewery Arts Center be a part of the conversation, whether they have any willingness to be a part of booking events, promoting events, doing that kind of thing. I think that that's just a natural fit for them. I know they've talked about doing their own stage there for a long time, whether that happens or it doesn't. I know it's not on their campus, but it's pretty darn close. And it also, promotes downtown businesses, which are going to, if they have more money in their pockets, they're going to be more willing to give to the brewery. I think there needs to be a serious conversation with the Brewery Arts Center that says, we want you guys to be a part of promoting events, for getting acts down here. That's what they do. I mean, they're artists, and I think that needs to be a real serious conversation about that, because that's how you're going to get those things to come down there. I think the splash thing is wonderful. You have the families and do that kind of thing. I would also say, how can we look at, if we want to make the splash pad bigger down the road, can we do that? Want to make the stage bigger down the road, can we do that? So some of those things. But the Brewery Arts Center, I think, should have a seat at the table to talk about those things.
What about What about at Minnesota Street? Is that what you're talking about with their?
That's not our discussion. That's not our discussion. And as far as I see what's going to happen in the future, I think what we have here, we were told over and over again that this is a very small area, but there are a number of other streets to nowhere also that maybe, this to me is the prototype. If this works, maybe other streets will work, maybe Curry Street one day in the future, but I think we need to talk about what it's going to be now, and let people, to me, it's always like a piece of the puzzle. This is a nice little piece of the puzzle to get the rest of everything going. So it's a corner piece. You got it. So thank you. Any other comments or suggestions? This is a time now I'll ask for member reports. Any reports? Oh, not on Carson Street. Okay. Public discussion, of course.
But we're on public comment next.
Yeah, public comment. Mr. White?
No action. It's a no action item.
Oh.
Good evening. Morris White for the record. I noticed in the backup material for this particular item where the schedule was provided as to what's been going on. January and February 2015, city staff will be working with the downtown property owners on the submittal of a petition to initiate a commercial area vitalization district within the downtown area to help pay for ongoing project maintenance costs. I'm wondering if staff could expound on what they have and will be doing to assist this group in creating the CAV, and in particular, how many man-hours are being spent assisting in the creation of the petition for this CAV.
I haven't been. I've been directed by the Board of Supervisors to work with the downtown property owners to develop this CAV district. That's part of the project. I
understand that.
I'm not sure how to answer that. It's because I haven't been tracking my time. I do it along with all the other things that are on my work schedule, but this is part of, so I'm going to take as many hours as it takes to help them prepare it.
Thank you.
Okay, that closes the public comment. Is there anything else a RAC member would like to add? This is now speaker forever hold your peace, okay? All right, and then we're now on C, future agenda items for the next meeting on February 2nd. Okay, do you have any suggestions for future agenda items?
Yeah, you know, I'm trying to think of the time, for February 2nd's the next one. It comes up pretty quick, usually with most things, actually, with this kind of lead time. You've got to start having stuff together next week for that meeting already. I mean, it's a little, but I could give an update on the bid district. Hopefully I'd have some things by then.
Can I ask, Lee, wouldn't you already have what was going to be presented at the February 5th because of open meeting law, so you could present the same issue that you're presenting to the Board of Supervisors on the 5th, right? We could look at that.
I would have to have it ready for you before I have to have it ready for them.
For the posting, close,
Yeah.
a couple days sooner.
Yeah. Yes.
You're up to
Well, that's what I'm thinking. If we're going forward, I don't, yes, I hope it's not that close. That's why I'm thinking I should have something to provide an update for that at that meeting. And I want to say for future meetings, and not necessarily for the 2nd, certainly at appropriate times through the process, as we, you know, after we get the consultant team on board and there's design, there's going to be points in the process where they're conducting public meetings. They know they're coming to RAC and RTC through that process. So again, by February 2nd, I'm not going to have that schedule because the contract won't be done, but we'll get on that through future meetings in the next couple months.
You mentioned before, you made mention about Mr. Saloga's salary maybe being removed. Maybe you think that's going to happen sometime before February? Maybe that'd be a future agenda item to have. Whether it's going to be in that time, I don't know if it is or not, but if so, maybe that's something to talk about. And I think that's a wonderful thing.
Also, the other thing that you had asked for in past minutes was a redefinition of what this committee is and should be doing for the future.
I think that's an ongoing discussion. I'd love to see this board and the Board of Supervisors, as the redevelopment committee, have a sit down and have an open meeting to talk about the direction of redevelopment and where they see, you know, what they see, what we see, and have a real serious discussion about that. I think that would be a great meeting.
Yeah, I think the first step in that is your recommendations on the project priorities and participating in that. And so perhaps I'll mention that at that meeting and see if that gets traction. Okay.
Okay, without further ado, we'll close the meeting, call for adjournment. Thank you, everyone, and good night.